I need space to find my true self, Marcus. That's what my wife Claire said to me 3 weeks ago while I was replacing a burnt outlet at the Henderson place. Mrs. Henderson was making coffee in the kitchen when my phone buzzed. I read the text twice, then finished the job. Been doing electrical work for 23 years. You learn not to leave things half done, especially when your world's falling apart. My name's Marcus Reynolds. I'm 47, run Reynolds Electric here in Spokane. Been married to Claire for 17 years. When she sent that text, I knew exactly what was coming next. You don't live with someone that long without reading the signs. Claire had been acting different for months. Started with yoga classes, then meditation retreats, then this spiritual advisor named Apollo who showed up at our community center talking about awakening your authentic self. Apollo Sage, he called himself. Real name was probably something like Bob Johnson, but spiritual gurus don't charge $200 an hour with names like Bob. Claire came home from that first meeting glowing like she'd found religion. He understands things, Marcus. About the universe, about energy. I nodded and kept eating my dinner. Meatloaf and potatoes, same thing I'd been making Thursdays for 15 years. Maybe that was part of the problem. Apollo drove a beat-up Volkswagen van with crystals hanging from the rear-view mirror. Long gray hair, flowing white shirts, the whole package. I met him once when I picked Claire up from a session. His handshake was weak. His eyes never met mine. Called me brother and asked if I was aligned with my chakras. I told him I was aligned with my mortgage payment. Claire stopped laughing at my jokes after that. The spiritual stuff escalated fast. Weekly sessions became twice weekly. Apollo offered private consultations, $200 an hour for one-on-one spiritual guidance. I paid without complaining because Claire seemed happy for the first time in years. But she was changing. Stopped wearing makeup, quit her job at the teen counseling center because working with trapped souls was draining her energy. Started eating only organic food, said preparing meat dishes was too heavy for her spirit. We'd been through rough patches before. 3 miscarriages over 2 years had hit her hard, each one worse than the last. She started reading about alternative healing, energy work, all that stuff. I supported her because that's what you do when someone you love is hurting. But something shifted after the 3rd miscarriage. She stopped talking about trying again, started talking about how the universe had other plans. Apollo showed up right when she was most vulnerable. That's what guys like him do. They find hurt people and tell them exactly what they want to hear. Physical intimacy disappeared 6 months ago. She said sexual energy was too earthbound for her spiritual journey. Apollo had helped her understand that most marriages were based on ego attachment rather than soul connection. I started sleeping in the guest room, told myself it was temporary. The retreat was supposed to be the final step. 5 days in the mountains outside Coeur d'Alene at some place called Harmony Springs. $800 to disconnect from material attachments. I wrote the check without complaint. She packed light, left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. It's too heavy, she explained. Apollo says metal jewelry blocks spiritual energy. I picked up that ring after she left. Simple gold band. I'd saved 3 months to buy it back when we were 26 and stupid in love. She cried when I proposed because she thought it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. That night, I called my buddy Tony Martinez. We'd gone through electrical trade school together 25 years ago. Both started our own companies around the same time. Tony runs Martinez Electric on the south side, specializes in commercial work while I handle mostly residential. She's at that spiritual retreat, I told him over the phone. The one that cost $800? Tony had heard me complaining about it the week before when we were working a job together at the new shopping center on Division Street. That's the one. And you're worried. Yeah, I'm worried. Tony was quiet for a minute. His own marriage had ended badly 5 years ago. His ex-wife Linda had cleaned out their joint account and moved to California with her yoga instructor. Cost him 40 grand in lawyer fees and half his business assets. You want some advice? He said finally. I'm listening. Check your accounts. All of them. And if you haven't already, separate your business assets from anything she can touch. Do it tonight. You think she'd actually, Marcus, she's been acting crazy for months. She quit her job, she's spending money like water on this guru bullshit. And now she's off in the mountains with Mr. Spiritual Advisor. Yeah, I think she might. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen looking at the bills piled on the counter. Electrical permits, insurance premiums, equipment payments. Running a small electrical contracting business in Spokane meant keeping track of every dollar. Competition was fierce with the big commercial outfits, and residential work was getting tighter with all the DIY videos on YouTube teaching people they could wire their own outlets. I'd built Reynolds Electric from nothing. Started with a used van, basic tools, and a contractor's license. Now I had 3 trucks, a small warehouse, and 2 part-time guys who helped with the bigger jobs. Took me 15 years to get a good reputation in the building community. Word of mouth was everything in this business. The thought of losing half of it in a divorce made my stomach turn. I went to my home office and pulled out the filing cabinet. Started going through financial records, bank statements, investment accounts. The business accounts Claire had never paid attention to because money made her uncomfortable. What she didn't know was that I'd been planning for our future quietly for years. The way you run electrical wire through walls where nobody can see it until you flip the switch. Tony's advice turned out to be prophetic. 3 months ago, I'd quietly restructured our savings account with help from my lawyer, Leonard Carter, and accountant Rick Townsend. What looked like accessible cash to someone who never paid attention to banking details was actually something quite different for someone who understood how financial instruments worked. The joint savings account had been converted to a structured investment account that required dual authorization for withdrawals above $5,000, certificates with cooling-off periods, automatic holds when large transfers occurred without proper documentation. Nothing illegal, just careful financial planning that protected assets from impulsive decisions during emotionally unstable periods. First 2 days of the retreat, Claire sent standard texts. Beautiful here. Learning so much. Love you. Then radio silence for 24 hours. When the next message came Friday evening, I was installing a new panel at the Morrison house. Mrs. Morrison was talking about her grandkids when my phone buzzed. Marcus, I've discovered my true path. I'm with someone who appreciates my soul. Apollo and I are traveling to California to start fresh. I've transferred our savings to fund our new life together. This isn't about hurting you. It's about honoring my authentic self. I hope someday you'll understand. I won't be coming home. I read it 3 times. Mrs. Morrison asked if I was okay. I told her the panel was finished and packed my tools. Miller pliers, wire strippers, voltage tester, same Klein tools I'd been using for 15 years. Reliable equipment you could count on when everything else was falling apart. Driving home, I felt strangely calm, like when you're troubleshooting a circuit and finally locate the short. You don't panic. You isolate the problem and fix it properly. At home, I checked our joint savings account on my laptop. Empty. $53,000. Gone. Transferred yesterday at 2 p.m. to her personal account at Cascadia Regional Bank. But I also checked the routing numbers and account details. She'd transferred from the structured investment account, not our regular savings. The account that triggered automatic security protocols for large transfers. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Claire. I know you're probably checking the account. I need this money to start over. You have your business. You'll be fine. Please don't make this ugly. I typed back, right. Your soul needs to be taken care of. She responded immediately. Thank you for understanding. I set the phone down and called Tony. She took the money, I said when he answered. How much? 53 grand. Cleaned out the savings account. Tony whistled low. That's a felony amount, Marcus. You could press charges. She's still my wife. Wife who just stole your life savings to run off with another man. I walked out to my garage where I kept my work trucks. 3 Ford Transits, all equipped with ladder racks, tool bins, electrical supplies organized in bins and drawers. Each truck represented years of 12-hour days. Weekends spent fixing emergency calls. Building a reputation, one satisfied customer at a time. There's more to it, I told Tony. Remember that restructuring I did 3 months ago? The investment account thing? Yeah, she transferred the money, but accessing it is going to be complicated. Very complicated. Tony was quiet for a minute. Then he started laughing. You sneaky bastard. What did you do? Set up some security features. Nothing she can't eventually work through, but it'll take time. And paperwork. And authorization she doesn't have. How much time? Depends on how good Apollo is with banking procedures. My guess is not very. Saturday morning, I met Tony and our buddy Carl Hoffman at Tony's shop. Carl runs Hoffman HVAC, been in business almost as long as we have. The 3 of us often work together on bigger projects, new construction, major renovations where you need electrical, heating, and sometimes plumbing coordination. Tony's shop was bigger than my warehouse, had a full machine shop in back where he fabricated custom electrical panels for industrial clients. We sat in his office drinking coffee from styrofoam cups, talking about work stuff for a while before getting to the real reason I was there. So your wife cleaned you out? Carl said. He was a straight-talking guy. Didn't waste words. Tried to clean me out, I corrected. What's the difference? Carl asked. I explained about the account restructuring, the security protocols, the dual authorization requirements. Smart, Tony said. But what happens when she figures it out? She'll come home, probably tonight or tomorrow. Apollo's not going to stick around when he finds out the money's tied up in red tape. Carl shook his head. 17 years of marriage and she pulls this shit. I'd be ready to kill somebody. I was angry at first, I said. But then I realized I'd been expecting this for months, maybe longer. The signs were all there. Still, Carl said. Guy comes after your wife, steals your money, messes with your life. That deserves more than just financial consequences. Tony looked at me. You thinking about confronting this Apollo character? I'm thinking about a lot of things. The truth was, I'd been thinking about more than just protecting my assets. I'd been thinking about what kind of man takes advantage of women going through grief. What kind of man builds a living, convincing lonely people they're special for $200 an hour? Apollo Sage wasn't just a spiritual advisor. He was a predator who'd found his perfect hunting ground in the wounded hearts of middle-aged women. You want backup when she comes home? Tony asked. Nah, this is something I need to handle myself. But it felt good knowing I had friends who'd offer. That's the thing about working in the trades. You develop relationships with guys who show up when things get difficult. Not because they have to, but because that's what you do. Sunday afternoon, I was replacing outlets in my neighbor's kitchen when my phone rang. Unknown number from Idaho. Marcus, it's me. Claire's voice, tight with panic. There's a problem with the bank account. I was installing outlet boxes in my neighbor's kitchen when Claire called. Kept working while I talked, hands busy, mind focused. What kind of problem? I asked, stripping wire with practiced motions. The money's there, but they won't let me withdraw it. They're saying there's some kind of hold that requires additional authorization. I connected the wire to the outlet. Careful, precise movements. Did you talk to the manager? Yes. They said the account has security features that require dual signature for large withdrawals. But Marcus, you gave me access to this account. Sure, to the regular checking and savings. You transferred from the investment-linked account. Different rules. Silence. Then what investment-linked account? The one I moved our savings to last month? Better interest rate. Should have mentioned it, I guess. More silence. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Harder. Marcus, we need that money. Apollo has commitments. We've made arrangements. I'm sure you can work something out with the bank. Might take a few days to process the paperwork. A few days? Marcus, we're supposed to leave today. We've already checked out of our hotel. Everything we own is in Apollo's van. I tested the outlet with my voltage tester. Perfect connection. That's a tough situation, Claire. Maybe Apollo can use his cosmic connections to sort it out. The line went dead. 2 hours later, she called back. This time, I stepped outside to take it. Marcus, you need to help me fix this. What exactly needs fixing, Claire? Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I need access to that money today. I told you it might take some paperwork. Stop! Her voice cut through the line. I talked to Apollo. He says this kind of thing doesn't happen by accident. He says you're trying to control me through money manipulation. I leaned against my truck and watched normal people driving to normal jobs. Apollo says a lot of things. This isn't funny, Marcus. We have plane tickets to California. We have deposits on an apartment. Apollo is committed to teaching at a spiritual center. People are counting on us. Sounds like Apollo should have checked the banking details before making all those commitments. Long silence. When she spoke again, any pretense of spiritual enlightenment was gone. You did this on purpose. I restructured our savings account for better returns. That's called financial planning. You restructured it to trap me. I restructured it because my wife was acting erratically and I wanted to protect our assets. Turns out I was right to be concerned. Our assets? You mean your assets, right? You want to punish me for choosing happiness over your boring life. Something cold settled in my chest. My boring life paid for your spiritual awakening. Every session with Apollo, every retreat, every organic meal you insisted on while refusing to work because it was too energetically draining. I was going through a spiritual transformation. You were having an affair and planning to steal my money. Another long silence. Fine. You want to be ugly about this? I'll get a lawyer. I'll take half of everything you have. The house, the business, all of it. I watched a hawk circle overhead. Patient, methodical. You could try that. But you might want to think it through first. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been out of work for 8 months. You have no income, no credit history separate from mine. You're broke, Claire. And your spiritual guru doesn't strike me as the kind of man who sticks around when the money runs out. Background voices arguing. Apollo's tone getting sharper. You're wrong, she said. But uncertainty crept into her voice. Apollo loves me. Then he won't mind waiting while you sort out the banking issues. More arguing, Apollo getting louder. I need that money today, Marcus. Please. I don't know what to tell you, Claire. Banks have procedures. I'll be home tonight. We need to talk face to face. The line went dead. That evening, Tony stopped by my house, found me in the garage, organizing tool bins that didn't need organizing. "Heard from her yet?" he asked. "She's coming home tonight." Apollo bailed when he couldn't get the money. Tony picked up my wire strippers, examined them like he was checking the edge on a knife. Good tools matter in our business. You can't do quality work with cheap equipment. "You know what I'd do if some guy ran off with my wife and tried to steal my money?" Tony said. "What's that?" "I'd pay him a visit. Make sure he understood the consequences of messing with another man's family." I took the strippers back, hung them in their proper place. "Apollo's not worth the assault charges." "Who said anything about assault?" "Just a conversation, man to man." Carl had said something similar at the shop. Male friends always want to solve problems with direct confrontation. Part of me appreciated that they were ready to back me up, but I'd already won this fight using my head instead of my fists. "I've got a better idea," I said. "Apollo's been running the same con on other women. Grief counselors, divorce support groups, anywhere he can find vulnerable people with savings accounts. What if that information found its way to the right authorities?" Tony grinned. "You sneaky bastard. How do you know about the other victims?" "Leonard Carter's been asking around. Turns out Apollo Sage isn't his real name. Guy's got a history in Seattle, Portland, couple other cities. Always the same pattern. Find lonely women, convince them they're special, disappear with their money. So what's the plan? Let the legal system handle it. But first, I need to deal with Claire." An hour later, her Honda pulled into the driveway. I met her at the door. She looked exhausted. The flowing spiritual clothes were wrinkled. The serene expression she'd been wearing for months was completely gone. "Where's Apollo?" I asked. "Gone. Said he had a family emergency in Seattle. Took his van and left me at the hotel with no money for the room. That's rough." She pushed past me into the kitchen, sat down at the table. "Marcus, I made a terrible mistake." "Yes, you did. Can we work this out? Without lawyers, without making this ugly?" I sat across from her. After 17 years, I could read her face like a wiring diagram. Fear, shame, desperation. All the emotions Apollo had taught her to suppress in pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. "That depends," I said. "Are you done with the cosmic guru bullshit?" She started crying. Not the cleansing spiritual tears she'd talked about during her transformation. Real tears. The tears of someone who just learned an expensive lesson about the difference between authentic self-discovery and expensive fantasy. "I don't know how to come back from this," she said. "You start by signing some papers. Then we figure out the rest." I pulled out the separation agreement Leonard Carter had prepared 3 weeks ago when I first suspected this day would come. 10 pages of legal language that boiled down to a simple choice: walk away clean with $10,000 or fight for more through the courts. "This gives you enough money to start over," I said, placing the document in front of her. "Get an apartment, get back on your feet. In exchange, you release all claims to marital property." She read through it slowly, her hands shaking slightly. "10,000 for 17 years? It's more than you had this morning, and it's enough to get you anywhere you want to go. What if I don't sign it? Then we do this the hard way. Lawyers, depositions, court hearings. You'll get half the marital assets eventually, but it'll take 2 years and cost more in legal fees than you'll recover, and everything becomes public record." She looked around the kitchen. The same kitchen where we'd shared 17 years of meals and conversations, where she'd told me about her dreams before Apollo convinced her those dreams weren't authentic enough. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "You always have a choice, Claire. That's what got us here." She signed the papers with slow, careful strokes. When it was done, I signed as well. 17 years of marriage reduced to a legal document. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you decide what you want to do. You can stay in the guest room while you figure things out, or you can leave tonight. Your choice. You'd let me stay? After everything? You're not my enemy, Claire. You made bad decisions, but that doesn't make you evil." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I think I'd like to stay for a while. If that's really okay, it's okay." The next morning, I got a call from Leonard Carter. "Good news about your spiritual advisor, friend. Real name's Robert Hutchins. He's got warrants in Oregon and Washington for fraud. Apparently, he's been running the same con for years. How many victims? At least 6 that we know of. Always the same pattern. Finds women going through grief or divorce, convinces them he's their spiritual soulmate, then disappears with their money. What happens now? Oregon authorities want to talk to Claire. Get her statement about what happened. With her testimony, they can probably put him away for a few years." I found Claire in the kitchen making coffee. Real coffee, not the herbal tea Apollo had convinced her was more spiritually pure. "The police want to talk to you about Apollo," I said. She set down her mug. "Are you going to press charges against me? For taking the money?" "Number. but you needed to help them build a case against him. There are other women, Claire. Women who lost everything because of guys like him. She was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. I'll do it. It's the least I can do. 3 weeks later, Apollo sage Robert Hutchins was arrested at a spiritual retreat in Northern California. Same setup, same con, different victims. This time he'd targeted a grief counseling group, convinced 3 recently widowed women that the universe wanted them to fund his mission of healing. Claire gave her statement to the Oregon authorities. Detailed testimony about the financial manipulation, the emotional exploitation, the systematic way he'd isolated her from friends and family. It wasn't easy for her, admitting how completely she'd been fooled. But she did it. 2 months after that, Claire got a job at the veterinary clinic downtown. $8 an hour answering phones and scheduling appointments. Not much money, but honest work with decent people. She took the bus to work every morning, came home tired but earning her own way. We started seeing Dr. Sarah Brooks for marriage counseling. Real counseling this time. Licensed therapist, evidence-based approaches. No crystals or cosmic insights. Just hard work and honest conversation about what had gone wrong and how to fix it. How are things at home? Dr. Brooks asked during one session. Better, Claire said. Not perfect, but better. We're learning to talk to each other again. We make decisions together now, I added. Money, schedules, everything. No more unilateral choices. And how does that feel, Claire? Safer, more grounded. For 8 months, I was living in this fantasy where I thought I was becoming enlightened. Looking back, I can see I was just running away from real problems. What problems? The miscarriages, the depression afterward, the way Marcus and I had stopped really connecting. Instead of dealing with any of that, I convinced myself the problem was spiritual. Dr. Brooks nodded, and Apollo provided a framework for that belief. He told me what I wanted to hear, that I was special, that my marriage was holding me back. Claire looked at me. He was good at reading people, knew exactly what buttons to push. How do you feel about him now? Angry, embarrassed, but also grateful in a weird way. Grateful? If he'd been better at his con, I might never have come home. The fact that he ran the minute the money got complicated showed me who he really was. 6 months later, Robert Hutchins was sentenced to 18 months in Oregon State Prison. The judge called him a predator who had systematically exploited vulnerable women during their darkest moments. Claire's testimony had been crucial in securing the conviction. We got the news while working in our garden. Claire had started growing tomatoes again, said she missed having her hands in the soil. Simple work, real results. No cosmic significance required.
Think he learned his lesson?
She asked, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants. Guys like him don't learn. They just get better at not getting caught. What about us? Did we learn anything? I thought about that question. About the woman she'd been when I met her and the woman she'd become under Apollo's influence and the woman she was now, working in dirt and earning minimum wage and slowly rebuilding trust, one honest conversation at a time. We learned that love isn't enough if you're not willing to do the work, and that the work is harder than the fantasy, but it's real. She smiled and went back to her weeding. We still had a long way to go. Some days were better than others. But we were doing the work together, building something real instead of chasing cosmic promises. That felt like progress.